Who's ready to make some money in real estate? Let's get into it. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Werenka. I'm the Michigan broker for Simply Home, which is the fastest growing real estate company in the United States. I have an all-star team of agents here, so whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, rent, whatever you need, we've got you covered. We even do property management now. And I, just as a nature of this channel, have a lot of people reaching out to me who are looking to invest in Michigan and the Metro Detroit area. So I figured I'd make this video because there's a couple different strategies that you need to employ, whether you're looking to fix and flip or buy and hold a rental properties. So let's talk a little bit about both of those so you can make an informed decision and decide which is the right way for you. But before we get into it, I do want to just take a second and apologize for not posting as regularly on this channel over the past couple months. We've had a lot going on. I'll get into all that in future videos. We'll talk about it, but just had so much going on. I really haven't had a chance to spend as much time on this channel as I like to. So we're going to get back to posting weekly content here and keep you guys up to date on the state of the market and all the good stuff that we have going on here in Metro Detroit. But back to your real estate strategy for investments. And as with everything in life, there's upsides and downsides to both strategies. So let's talk about that for a minute. We'll start with flipping. So maybe you want to get into the flipping business, rehabbing homes, selling them, get that quick cash, right? So let's talk about it. We're going to start with the potential downsides here, so you know what to expect getting into it. And first and foremost, the biggest obstacle to flipping a house is the acquisition cost in the market. If you're not picking up that property at the right price, you're already kneecapping yourself to an extent. Not to say that you can't make money, but that's the number one thing that you have to focus on when you're picking up homes to flip. The second biggest risk is just market fluctuation, because depending on your ability to rehab a home, whether you're hiring somebody else out to do it or if you're doing the work yourself, there is going to be a significant lag time between when you purchase that house and when it's ready for the market, potentially. And in the meantime, we just want to make sure that the market doesn't fluctuate and tank and go down, and we don't want you to be in a position to lose money or anything like that. And unfortunately, nobody's got a crystal ball. Mine's in the shop, so I can't tell you that, you better hold off because the market's going to dip in 2 months. Nobody really knows. I mean, we can see signs, but indications that things are going to happen in the market, but that's no guarantee that things are ever going to happen. The market is the market. It's going to do what it does. So that's something to always kind of keep an eye on is, while you're doing the rehab on the house, just keep checking every couple weeks, what are homes selling for in that neighborhood, and make sure that there's not all of a sudden an explosion of new listings that you're going to have to compete against that's going to bring the value down. Luckily, we haven't seen that in years around here. I don't anticipate that happening. With that being said, it's important to bring that up because you just never know. So as you probably guessed, flipping homes has the biggest upside potential for making money, but it also has the biggest risk because you're tying a big chunk of money for a fairly significant amount of time, and you're not going to realize those gains until the home sells. So that aside, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it. So aside from the acquisition costs, let's talk about the absolute next most important thing. It is absolutely, positively, 100% a must that you keep a close eye on your rehab budget. That is going to eat into your positive equity more than anything else. And if you're new to flipping, here's my rule of thumb. Whether if you're experienced and you flipped 20 homes, then you know what to do better than me. But this is targeted more to to a newer investor. What you really need to do when you're looking at your rehab budget is kind of err to the high side of that budget. If you think it's going to cost somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000, basically just assume that it's going to be the $30,000 and then add 20% on top of that. I'm not even exaggerating. So cost overruns are the name of the game in this business, especially now it's looking like material costs could be increasing as well. So that's another question mark that you have to factor in. So, just overestimate the budget to repair the home by a lot. And if you come in under that, congratulations. but you don't want to give yourself unrealistic expectations that you just can't ever achieve. And especially if you're new to this, there's always going to be more than you think. When you're rehabbing a house, it's just the name of the game. It's very rare to come in under budget. If you're one of those people that can do it, then awesome. Maybe reach out to me so that we can do a video together and you can enlighten other people on how you do that. But go to the high side of your price range, add 20% to that. And if you can't make the numbers work with that, then you need to find a different house. So the next most important thing is actually getting the work done on the house, and speed is the key here. Obviously, the faster you can get a home rehabbed, the faster you can put that money back in your pocket. But whether you're looking to, if you can do the work yourself, that's going to cut down on time potentially, I would imagine, and cost by a lot. But a lot of people don't have that skill set. They need to rely on contractors for at least some of the items. Some cities will require you to pull permits. If you're replacing a furnace or a hot water heater, you're going to want to pull a permit. And a lot of times they will allow some cities will allow homeowners to pull those permits, but a lot of times they want a licensed contractor to do it. So you need to make sure that before you start work on a property that you have somebody lined up that's reputable, that's affordable, that's going to show up when they say they're going to show up and do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. Because believe me, I've seen it all, and not all contractors and handymen are built the same. So it's definitely important to get a pricing quote up front. I definitely would recommend getting multiple bids, at least 2 or 3, so that so that if your number one guy fails you and doesn't show up or starts costing way more money than you expected, you can flip that job over to somebody else. You need to, I'd look at references, I'd look at other work that person's done, and also you need to make sure that they're going to be able to work in the location that you want to buy homes in, because a lot of contractors from the suburbs here won't go in the city of Detroit and vice versa. So if that's, if you're buying a home in Detroit to fix and flip, you need to make sure that the people that you have lined up will actually show up when they're supposed to show up and do the work. What it all boils down to at the end of the day is just be realistic. Be realistic about how much the house is going to cost, be realistic about how much it's going to cost to rehab, and then be realistic about how much you can sell it for. If you're in an area where, say homes are the highest high-end homes are selling for $500,000, but they're 15 years newer, they're in a little bit different section of a subdivision or something like that. Those aren't real comps. You have to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you're when you're determining what price you're going to be able to sell that house for. You need to make sure that you're really realistic about that price. So that's one of those areas where you can consult with an agent. I highly recommend that. Find somebody that knows the area, that is not going to just sugarcoat things for you. Like when it comes down to investing, it's very important that you have a very clear picture about everything that's going on the ground. So, you don't want somebody that's just going to tell you what you want to hear. You need somebody that's going to tell you the truth. So just make sure you have that resource before you ever even get started. Before you ever commit to buying something, make sure all that stuff is as clear as possible. I mean, there's always going to be things that pop up during the course of a flip, but the more variables you can eliminate at the front end, the happier you're going to be on the back end when it sells. Oh, and before I forget, there's one other thing you got to budget for when you're flipping a home. Unless you're going to utilize a 1031 exchange to defer your capital gains taxes, and what that means is whatever proceeds you get off the sale of a home, you have to put it into an escrow. There's an administrator that handles that money for you, and then you use that money to purchase other real estate, and that eliminates you paying capital gains tax. If you're just going to flip it, put that money in your pocket, you're not going to put all of it in your pocket because Uncle Sam's going to want their 20% of short-term capital gains. I believe it's 20%. Definitely consult with your tax professional when you're getting ready to do this as well, because they're going to have a little bit more insight than I will on how you want to structure everything and how much you really can expect to pay in taxes. So yeah, that's definitely a big part of it too, because that's going to be a big chunk of your equity that you're pulling out of that house when you sell it. So at the end of the day, if you're looking to fix and flip, I definitely, I'm not going to tell you not to, because I work with a lot of investors who make a lot of money doing exactly that. But it is definitely a skill set where experience matters. The more homes you flip, the more times you do it, the more times you go, the more reps you get through the process, the easier it's going to be for you. That 20% extra on your budget can maybe start getting whittled down to 10%, or maybe you just like walk into a house, you know exactly what you need to do because you've flipped 40 homes. And in that case, your experience will definitely matter. You're going to have a better experience the more times you do it. It's just going to be easy and a lot more. It's just going to be more automatic of a process. But when you're first getting into it, just make sure you're overestimating all your costs, underestimate your profits, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised when you make more money. So that's fix and flip. Now let's talk about buy and hold as an investment strategy. Still extremely, extremely important to be realistic with your goals when you're going to buy and hold and accumulate rental properties as well. That being said, in my experience, you do have a lot more flexibility within your budget when you're employing a rental strategy, buying and holding. You can, when you're flipping a house, generally you're going to want to make it really, really nice so that people walk in, immediately are impressed with it and immediately want to buy it. With a rental property, not necessarily. I mean, you can, maybe the house is built in the 1970s and has an original kitchen. If it's not, goldenrod and avocado green, and, maybe you just get away with just keeping the kitchen as is, not updating it, or, not going as far in the updating process, because people are going to rent it no matter what. Maybe you get, is it really worth it to sink an extra 10 grand into a kitchen to make an extra, $110 a month on rent? I mean, that's up to you. I would probably say no, but that depends how long you want to own the house, and like I said, that's up to you, depending on what standards you want to bring that house up to. But just budget-wise, it's not as important to really buckle down and overestimate how much it's going to cost. There's some things you can do. I wouldn't say cut corners, but just maybe not spend as much on updates, or maybe even nothing at all if you buy something that's move-in ready. The other thing you want to do when you're getting ready to purchase rental properties is research the area you want to invest in. If you're going to buy more than one rental property, which I think is probably the way to go. I mean, you're not going to get rich off one rental. And in fact, I think the strategy is to get to 2 or 3 as fast as you can, because when one of them's vacant, the other 2 are still producing income for you, and and that way you can kind of stagger it when you're putting new tenants in. It just makes things a little more easy and automatic. But I recommend, if you're going to employ that strategy, buy your homes all in the same general area, and I'll tell you why. I'm actually doing this right now. I've got 2 homes that I'm placing tenants in. They're both 3-bedroom bungalows. They're literally about a quarter mile away from each other, and they're going to rent for about the same amount. So what I'm doing is, if I have an applicant that's not maybe the right fit for the one house, I'm sending them to the other one, and that way you're just, you're leveraging both those properties. I'm going to get both of them rented much faster than if, one was in Pontiac and one was in Taylor. You're not going to find the same tenant for both those properties. But this way, since they're right next to each other and they're very, very similar in size and age and finish and the whole 9 yards, if somebody doesn't like the one house, I can just send them over to the other one, and maybe they like that one better. So for that reason, it's just going to be more efficient for you as a landlord and a property owner to have all your properties in one area. Plus, it's easier if you have, say you've got a good handyman that you like working with, and hey, we got to fix a faucet at this house over here, and while you're at it, why don't you run over to that one and take care of whatever, the fence gate is broken or something like that. Who knows what? But like I said, you can utilize. It just makes it more efficient. You can utilize your handyman and just have him knock out a couple different projects all at once, instead of sending him here, paying for it, sending him over there, paying for it. It's just easier, faster, and that way your tenants know that you're being proactive as a landlord too, which keeps them in the house longer, makes them, generally speaking, more willing to work with you, and if something does pop up, they know that if there's an issue that's going to take 2 weeks to fix, you're a lot more likely to have an understanding tenant that's working with you, because they know that you're on top of it. You're not just like letting something go that can be fixed right now. There's a legitimate reason why it's going to take that amount of time to fix it. And another thing to think about when you're applying that buy and hold rental property strategy is, do you want something that's just move-in ready and you can just move your tenant in, just get the rental inspection done with the city, move somebody right in? Or do you want something that's going to be a little bit cheaper because it needs a little bit of updating, and do you want to take care of that? If you go that second route where you're going to get something a little cheaper that needs some work, please refer to the repair budget comments for fix and flips, because the same thing is true. You want to overestimate how much it's going to cost to make those repairs, tack 20% onto that, because it's always something that pops up, and you don't want to be just demolishing your budget for repairs unnecessarily. And then this kind of goes along with when you're fixing and flipping, pulling permits with the city and keeping them happy. Even more important as a rental property owner is working with that city, their building department or rental department. Every city's a little bit different, but generally speaking, the rental inspectors and stuff will work out of the building department at whatever municipality you decide to buy in. You definitely want to register that property as a rental, get it inspected, make sure you get that rental license, and then move somebody in. If it's very minimal, like sometimes you can get away with just moving somebody in and then having the inspector out. But I do it the other way around first. I would get the city 100% signed off and then move somebody in, call it a day. You can't fight City Hall. You don't want to make them your enemy. You don't want to be on their radar. So for all those reasons, just make sure that you're working with your municipality. Generally speaking, if you call and ask questions or go down there and talk to the rental inspector, they're very easy to work with. They want people engaging with them, and if you keep them in the loop, you're going to get a lot of leeway. If you just ignore them, that's when you have problems that pop up. So almost every city requires a rental inspection. The only one that I know of in the Metro Detroit area that doesn't for some weird reason is Troy. But if you got $400,000 to buy a rental property, I guess they're assuming that it's in pretty good shape. But every city that I work in, you got to register that property as a rental. And I work in Troy as well, but most of my investors aren't buying homes in Troy. They're buying Hazel Park, Ferndale, Oak Park, Detroit. So all those cities, you're going to have to get the property registered as a rental, get it inspected, and get that license. And then just as a couple more landlord housekeeping items, you need to decide if you're going to manage that property yourself or if you're going to hire a property manager to do it for you, because obviously that's going to eat into your budget as well. I've got clients that manage 40, 50 doors, and they're not even in the state of Michigan, so it can totally be done. You have to be really on top of it and really organized. I've got other people that bought their first one and just have us manage it. So there's plenty of property management companies out there. Shameless plug, I started doing property management again for a reason, because I don't trust any of them. But if you have a property manager that you're happy with, stick with them, do your thing, just keep adding properties to your portfolio, and good things will happen. But you definitely want to factor that in when you're putting your budget together, because that's typically going to be 10% of your gross rent right off the top will go to the management company. So just make sure that you're cash flowing the amount that you want to cash flow. Another thing I would do is consider getting a home warranty on your rental properties. Those are going to run $500 to $600. That's going to cover your major mechanicals, your major appliances. A lot of times they'll cover roof leaks, plumbing fixtures, things like that. So inevitably that's the worst call you're going to get, and it always happens like 8 o'clock on a Saturday when you're ready to head out the door. My furnace doesn't work. So it's so much easier to just call that 1-800 number on the home warranty company and let them send their person out and fix it for you than it is to, now you're scrambling and maybe your normal HVAC guy can't get there, and it's, the middle of winter and you have to get the heat on at a house, and now you're calling somebody's, after hours emergency line where they're going to charge, $700 just to go out and look at it. Like, you can avoid all that nonsense with a home warranty. So think about it. I don't necessarily recommend it every single time, but it's something that you might want to look into. And finally, when you are placing tenants, this is the probably the most important thing that I've learned over the years that I've started doing, is try and get those tenants signed up for at least 18 months. Like, we always try for a 2-year lease, and if we can't do that, we'll try and back it out to a year and a half. Just simply because, anytime that house is empty, like when a tenant moves out, realistically you're looking at 2 or 3 months of downtime where that property is not generating income. So the longer you have them in there, the more income, steady income you're going to get with the fewer, down months every time that you have to, turn over a tenant. So think about that. That's really been key. I can't recommend that strongly enough. If you have Section 8 tenants, that won't fly. Section 8 is only for a year. Every Section 8 authority that I've ever worked with is a 1-year lease, but they typically just auto-renew. You can do a cost of living adjustment once a year with those. So we can do another video about that another time. But whenever possible, sign that tenant up to the longest lease term that you guys can agree upon. And obviously, if they're going to be a garbage tenant, it's going to happen anyway. So whether they're in there for a 12-month lease or an 18-month lease, if you want them out, you're going to have to evict them anyway. But generally speaking, if you do your homework, you do things right, you're going to end up with good people that will pay the rent on time and just maintain the property. There is a little bit of a skill set to that, but generally speaking, if you're careful about who you put in on the front end, it's going to pay off dividends, and you're going to avoid a lot of headache. Let's put it that way. So hope this was helpful, guys. And take it from me. I've done both. I've owned rental properties. I've flipped houses. I've learned from my own mistakes flipping houses. Like one time we were flipping one here in Ferndale. And that was in 2014, and we had this crazy 500-year rainfall event where the whole city flooded, like half of Metro Detroit flooded, and that was 2 days before we were going to go on the market. So when that happened, everything stopped dead in Ferndale. People just stopped buying houses because the whole city flooded except for one little section. Luckily, the section I live in didn't flood, but most of the rest of the city did, and that put the brakes on everything for it was about 6-7 weeks before people really started kind of buying again. So we definitely lost. We didn't lose money on the sale, but we lost some equity that we would have realized had we had the house on the market 2 weeks sooner. It probably would have been under contract and sold for more money, and instead we had to wait another I forget what it was, 2 months before we got it sold. Whereas the other option then would have just been to put it up for rent and call it a day. But we'd kind of over improved it for rentals at that point. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. This is all from experience. I'm not just telling you stuff. This is all stuff that I've learned firsthand. So learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make them on your own. But if you do have any questions whatsoever, just reach out anytime. You can comment on this video. You can reach out directly. My direct line is 586-491-5622. You can also reach me at 248-561-6155. My email is derekwarenka@simplyhome.com, or you can just reach me on my old email address if you still have that, dwarenka@m1realty.net. I'm going to keep that up forever. Otherwise, on the socials, Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm on it. Reach out and I'll respond quickly. And thank you so much for watching, guys. Again, I apologize for not getting videos out at the same rate that I'm used to doing, but we're going to get back on top of that and have a lot more content out for you guys here shortly. So thanks again. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving, where it's coming up here in a week. And anything you need, guys, that's what I'm here for. Talk soon. Have a great one.